Baby, you send me out. Baby, you send me out. Set adrift on the weakness of
Mrs. Dunbar.
Well, good evening. I think.
Keep wanting me to go.
Good evening. I think we're live. We are Betty Jean Grant and Sherry Sherrill, and we're on the Red, Black, and Green show that is being sponsored by We Are Women Warriors, and we got another great show for you tonight. As you know, last night, February 24th, we had a forum at the Meriwether Library. Very well attended. Could be more people, but we're happy with those who came. We talk about education, what is happening in our schools, what is happening in our community, and what is happening in some of our household. And hopefully, with these dialogue, we're going to have these forums monthly, on a monthly basis, probably the last Thursday.
Yes, the last Thursday of the month, or if there is no last Thursday, fourth Thursday would be the third Thursday.
The third Thursday of the month, we will have this forum because we have to take control. We have to take ownership of what is happening in our community. We got to take the credit for the good things that are happening, and also take responsibility for things that could be improved. And so last night was a start to getting where we need to be to ensure that our children are safe at home, in their houses, in their community, on the way to school, at school, and then coming back home again. Hopefully, we need to have more community centers open, so for those parents who are not at home when a child gets off from school, maybe we can have community center being a surrogate household or surrogate family until the family gets home from work. So, on a note, what do you think about last night forum?
Well, like you said, Betty Jean, there were, it was a comfortable crowd, I will say. No one was certainly uncomfortable because there were plenty of seats, but we had about 40 people.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
I know normally for We Are Women Warriors forums, we usually get at minimum about 60 people.
60, 70, sometimes 80.
So we were just, just a little bit off, maybe a couple of dozen, but you know what?
I think because of, we went through 2 years of HELL, 2 years of the pandemic, and people were afraid to come out. They're afraid to get more than less than 6 feet apart. They were afraid to come out without a mask. They're afraid of being inside in a large crowd. So with all these factors there, and we really are not 100% where we need to be. And so I think some of those elements might have played a part in the lower turnout than we expected. But those who came, we appreciate you coming. Those who were on the panel, we appreciate that. And I think we got a good start to going forward to what we need to do to ensure that our community progress and our community is in a better light this year than it was in 2020, 2021.
Yes, and getting back to the fact of the attendance, there were a number, how many, maybe 20 odd people. So about 50% of the persons who attended did sign up to be on that speakers list.
Yes.
And did in fact speak and shared just some very poignant, some very thought-provoking insights about their experiences, their observations, and their suggestions and recommendations. We had a couple of comments that kind of maybe one or two that were touching in other areas other than what we were actually there for. And we certainly do want to encourage persons, do speak up, use your voice. Your voice is important, and this is indeed a community dialogue. So we are hoping, in fact, to hear what the community's residents' opinions are. But it is important at the forums that we do have the theme of the forum. It should always be part of the overarching thought, guiding and shaping the comments that we do share with one another publicly there at the forum. So the person that did comment that stuck to the theme, which was what can we do as a community about violence that is involving, targeting, and just indeed impacting our youth. Those comments were spot on. They certainly gave me food for thought.
Some of them speakers are from the panelists. The panelists or the speakers?
I'm talking about the speakers at this point.
Oh, okay.
I'll get back on at some point when we talk about what some of the panelists' input was. But the speakers, I thought, I really was encouraged by what I heard. What the comments did for me, they reinforced the focus and the emphasis that the organization is placing in this conversation.
Right.
And that being that while there are societal forces, external societal forces that are impacting us all and are also obviously falling on our youth and impacting them and informing their experience and their quality of life and shaping their behavior and thought processes, which stem from behavior stems from thought processes. But it really truly emphasized that we are on the right track, Benji. Right. We Are Women Warriors is on the right track. And in asking the question and encouraging introspection and looking inward towards ourselves as individuals, respective individuals, and collectively as a community, what can we do that will make a positive impact and indeed increase opportunities for peace and in the lives of our youth, decrease the likelihood of they either becoming involved in violence, meaning associates, and they're perpetrating violence themselves as individuals, and they're experiencing violence as individuals. And we just, last night's conversation just revealed that there's a couple of different, dynamics that are impacting all of that. Absolutely. And we need to be aware as a community.
Absolutely. And I'm glad, too, that my daughter brought my two youngest grandson, and they were serving the food after meeting because we want them involved. We want them to know what is going on and also to be part of the solution. Because this world, this city we're trying to improve, and the school system to improve, they're part of it now. And they will be part of the community as adults once they graduate and get their career in line, and then maybe be teachers. We don't know. And so it is good that we involve our youth. It's good that we have a community conversation. And a lot of people who were there are either grandparents of children in Buffalo Public School, or they are neighbors, or they are community activists. But I'd like to see more active parents, and I think that's one group we need to reach out more. We need to get them involved because the world and the environment we're creating is for their children, and they have to be a part. But we have to have parental responsibility, and we have to have school accountability. And it's two things that we cannot do in a silo. And and people kept saying silos. I heard that 3 or 4 times. We cannot operate or work in a silo because we have to work together. We have to bounce off information against each other, get the best solution, and then put it forth. I think one solution was Jesse was parental accountability. He believes, and so is I, that there needs to be more involvement from parents in their children's education. They need to come to school board meetings. They need to look at school board meetings. They need to call their teachers. They need to come to teacher evaluation, not teacher evaluation, but student evaluation where they have it. They need to do all of these things, and that's where I think the fall off from now and where it used to be when you guys were in school in the 1970s, 1980s. And I don't want to tell your age, but that's when we had. I always tend to, and I used to get mad. I said, "How come I didn't get invited to what's called parent-teacher meeting?"
The PTA meetings.
PTA meetings. Yeah. No, this is one for evaluation if you're doing good or bad. Mm-hmm. And so you guys were doing very well. I think all you graduated Regents exam, Regents diplomas. And so I was saying, well, how come you didn't send me no? It's your child doing well. I said, I still want to go there and see how well they're doing because I think it could be doing better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think this is the meeting last night was just one start of many meetings where we're going to be working together with different groups, different organizations. And I know that the MVP had something involved last night. They were going to come. I talked to Linda Henderson, who said that she regretted being there, but they had an initiative. Also, there's prayer vigils. There were so many things last night, and that kind of played on the lower than expected turnout. But we know that going forward, we're going to be reaching out to all these groups and organizations, collaborating, making sure that what we put forward is very best this community can put forward.
And just to take everybody back and make sure we're all on the same page and to get everybody up to speed, I'd like to explain just a little bit about what the forum is, what the purpose of it is, and what the hoped for outcome of it is, and what our hoped for impact is. The founder of We Are Women Warriors, of course, Betty Jean Grant, came up with this concept that we have certainly heard from not only organizations but from individuals in the community expressing what they believe to be impacts or causes or contributing factors to violence that we're experiencing in the community. And I just want to say that, of course, we're all aware that it is not just the city of Buffalo that violence has spiraled out of control. It is all over the country in urban municipalities, most of them, in fact. And sadly, in those locations, including the city of Buffalo, the involvement or the impact or the perpetrator stemming or emanating or living in our communities where we live, where we are the predominant population, is higher. It's a disproportionate percentage. It's most of this violence is impacting and involving as victims and perpetrators persons of the African American persuasion. So what Betty Jean thought was since we have plenty of voices saying what they think the external force contributing factors and causes are, what is missing is a conversation, a dialogue, and an interactive dialogue about the internal forces and contributing factors and causes, what those might be and indeed we believe are. So she came up with this No Excuses Community Forum. So what We Are Women Warriors is going to be doing,
Yes.
as Betty Jean has said, on the 3rd or 4th, if there is no 4th Thursday in a month, on the Thursday that is either the last Thursday in the month, whether it's the 3rd or 4th, we're going to be holding continuing the series of No Excuses Community Forums. And it is imperative. It is our organization's contribution to the work that we ourselves do, which does not normally specialize or focus in crime prevention, but what we do, our mission, we also support the work of other organizations and other individuals where we see that the mission, the objective, the goal of those efforts is to improve the quality of
You
life.
said crime prevention, but I just want to slash it with crime prevention student support, because as we focus on the crime, we also focus on the students and those who might not be committing crimes, those who have difficulty through no fault of their own. You know, like I said last night, somebody can just walk down the street, be looking at a person the wrong way, and wind up getting shot or killed. So I'm glad that you mentioned crime prevention, but our focus is also on student support as well.
Yes, and so it's not necessarily our primary focus. Our mission is to also support other organizations. So when you mentioned MVP,
Yes.
you mentioned the need to get parents more involved, Betty Jean.
Yes.
And MVP, we know, is the premier parent organization, if not the premier, one of the premier parent organizations, parent involvement and parent engagement and parent support organizations in Buffalo and Erie County.
Right.
And so we're, of course, reaching out to that entity, that organization,
And also
offering our support.
There's one called We the Parent.
And We the Parents,
That's Sam Rafford put that together.
Yes,
and also
ma'am.
we got the BPTO, which is Buffalo Parent Teacher Organizations, their parental involvement. And there's another one, Sam's old group was this coordinating committee, I forgot the name of that one. He started before.
District Parent.
Yes. DPCC.
Yes.
District Parents Coordinating Committee.
I thought it was District Parent Coordinating Council.
It might be that.
It might be.
I know DPCC.
But we do know DPCC.
Absolutely.
And we do know Mr. Rafford.
So that's 4, right? It's 4 groups we have
Yes.
already. And so we have a lot of support out there.
And
a lot
we're
of
not replicating what they
collaboration.
do.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yes.
Yes, so we have, so what we're doing, and so we're going to be continuing and to expand that network so that we are supporting the work of the various organizations that focus on improving the quality of life available to City of Buffalo residents, and especially those that focus on East Buffalo or the East Side, as it's called.
Maybe something, you know, about these, I don't want to focus on McKinney students stabbed and shooting, but I was surprised, I hate to say it, but I assumed that the shooter of the security guard was an African American youth. He was not, he was white, I heard. And I was surprised to see that the boy who was stabbed 10 times, stabbed by not a person, not a black youth, but an Asian youth. And so because we are so predisposed to violence within our community, within our African American youth, we just automatically assume. And I think that's not fair for us to do that. So now, forever, I'm not going to prejudge, just going to look at the facts and find out what the facts are before I assume anything.
Well, you know, an open mind is important. And bearing that in mind, we can look at what is happening, that has been happening for a number of years, unfolding here in Buffalo and around the country. There is, in fact, a disproportionate amount of the violence is impacting either victims that are African American or the perpetrator is African American, and certainly the community that feels the reverberation of those acts is African American community. But so what we're seeking to do with these community forums is we're inviting the community to engage, to get involved. If you have not been involved in any community group or even supporting or offering to volunteer, or attending any meetings or including forums like No Excuses, we're saying the community needs, our youth need you to get involved, whether you are a parent with children, whether you are a relative of someone who has children, or whether you are an individual that is maybe 16, 17, 18 years old yourself, and you're old enough to be able to make a decision to attend a meeting. We're saying get involved. We need your voice. We need your support. We're going to be drafting from these conversations that happen for the rest of this year, each and every month, like we say, the last Thursday of the month, from 5 to 8 p.m. unless we notify you otherwise. And then we have a Facebook page, We Are Women Warriors. And we also announce frequently through all the Western New York, upstate Western New York media community. That includes the Buffalo Criterion, the Buffalo Challenger, the Buffalo News, and the various radio stations, and particularly those also that have talk radio shows and the ones our communities, especially our youth, listen to. We do announce our initiatives and any changes to those time frames that those initiatives are attached to. So from 5 to 8 p.m., we're aiming for the Meriwether Library because it's a very familiar spot. It's central in the city and centrally located. And inside the Dr. Eva M. Doyle Auditorium, come to the next meeting. If you missed last night, you missed not just an introduction to the initiative, you missed some wonderful, engaged, thought-provoking comments, suggestions that persons brought to that forum.
Right, and then they can go on my Facebook page or We Are Women Warriors Facebook page, and sure your Facebook page as well, and see the tape that we taped it.
I know we pinned it to the top of the We Are Women Warriors page.
Oh, really? That's great. That's great. So you can go there, you can see it. And you know, there's a group now that's been, not a group, but I guess a project by the Deputy Commissioner, Barbara Lark. Lark, who is the female African American Deputy Commissioner, second Deputy Commissioner. She has a program that will be working with young women.
Wonderful.
Yeah, young women who are now participating in violence and acts of criminal activity more so than they did in the past. So, you know, we know that women have been victims, and more women, I think, were killed in 2021 and 2000. 2021, 2020, than any time in our history. And it used to be very rare to see a female being shot. I think last year or the year before we had about 5 or 6 or more. And so we have to recognize too that it's not just the young men who are committing violence, it is our young women as well. And so they need these mental services. So most things are geared towards the male shooter or the male victim, when we need to know to recognize that women are dying just like men are dying.
You know, you can look. I used to work in a jail, and I can tell you that there is no shortage of individuals that are getting caught up in the criminal justice system, and that are either jailed or on some type of supervised release program. And also, I want to say this, I look at the trends that are happening across the country, and there is a tremendous, if you are not aware, there's a tremendous outpouring of violence being inflicted against children.
Yes.
Including very young children. And as perpetrated against individuals that are supposed to be their caregivers, their caretakers, and yes, even their mothers. So that's, there is a need for emphasis on getting some special type of focus on women. And I'm very glad to see that it is a deputy commissioner, someone of that informed position, having a glimpse, not more than a glimpse, having a view of the community as a whole, and having a focus. And I know the outgoing commissioner, Buffalo Police Commissioner Byron C. Lockwood, who retired, I believe, today.
Yes.
And so we certainly do wish him well, and we are grateful for his service. And I know that I was reading in the Buffalo News, Betty Jean, the story that was written about his departure. And even though he was a seemingly soft-spoken, low-key kind of an individual, he was certainly effective while he was there. He brought a community focus. Yeah, it was important to him. When he came on out of that onto his administration coming into, and being enacted,
but,
he brought that focus.
Right, and I think what happened too when I was elected to county council in 1990, they had a lot of community police officers. They were in the community. In fact, Barbara Lark, I first met her as a community police officer for the E District of Bailey Avenue, and that kind of went to the wayside. We had Kurtikowski became the commissioner, and he kind of moved toward more of a structure, traditional kind of policing than community officer. So for, I guess, about 15, 20 years, that community police officer concept kind of died down. But now Commissioner Lockwood, who became commissioner 4 years ago, brought that idea back. That's why you have people like Mo Badger, who went really, I think, from the police academy to the community police officer, because he's the father of he's the son of a pastor, very well known pastor. He has a lot of community outreach. So they utilize him instead of having him stuck in a car just doing traditional police duties. He's out in communities, he's going to school. He may be a Buffalo Police Resource Officer, I'm not really sure. So I'm glad that Commissioner Lockwood brought the concept back, not concept, but the actual program of community police officer back into the Buffalo Police Department.
And remember that show, the community show, Buffalo Police Officer Roscoe Henderson.
Yes.
He also, I don't remember if it was during Lockwood's tenure or before Lockwood's tenure, I think. He was on that community hour program. We really need the community hour to come back.
Yes, absolutely.
We need the community hour. It was an important forum for the community. It was an important opportunity to hear news and information and to discuss news about events that were taking place in our community, even national events and information. But also it gave residents an outlet to express themselves. I'm all for, and I know you are too, every opportunity available for persons' voices to be heard. Because it's in doing that we're learning, we advocate for ourselves and for each other. And so our issues are kept at the fore of the agenda here, the regional agenda.
Now let's go back to the forum. You said you said something about the panelists.
Well, what I noted was that I know that Miss Belton Cotman, Sharon Belton Cotman, she had expressed, I thought particularly the point she made about what you just said, and you just said it, about how not to presuppose, not to jump to conclusion, not to think the worst of our students, because you don't hear, unfortunately, there's only so much hours, time that you can spend giving the news. You can't put everything in the news, but you don't hear a whole lot, it seems sometimes, about the good the
Yes.
good that our students are doing.
Right.
Know that our students, we do have plenty of students in the Buffalo Public School system that are not only going to school to learn, they're excelling at learning. They're doing a wonderful job. They're working as hard as they can to the best of their ability. They're involved in the
Yes.
after-school programming. They're bringing to their school projects. They're participating in their school's projects. They're engaged with their parents. They're respectful of their teachers. They utilize the school as in the way that it is supposed to, and they're not the issue, but they are also impacted when things go wrong. So everything that all of we groups are doing to assist our youth, it's not. Don't ever perceive it, God forbid, that it's anybody targeting wrongly or trying to target inordinately. We're not trying to do that. We are responding to, and we're trying to also be proactive at the same time to address when there is a problem, but also to keep the path as smooth as possible, paved as smoothly as possible as we can for our community,
But
especially our youth.
think about, when I was the chair of the legislature, Erie County Legislature, I instituted the Citizen of the Month. For there was, there are 12 months out of a year. At that time we had 9, we still have 9 legislators, and we have a month of recess in August. And so what I did was give each legislator a month that they can choose the person in their district who they want to recognize as being the citizen of Erie County for the year. That took off. There's one thing that they that I put in place that sometimes other people want to take credit for it, they're still doing it. So that right there is something people say, oh, what is she doing when she was a legislator? She do nothing. Well, I'll tell you now, the Citizen of the Month came from Betty Jean Grant, and they're still doing it in the legislature. Wouldn't it be great if the Buffalo Public School could adopt a Student of the Month? Each school has a Student of the Month, and they can publish that student's bio, or why he was chosen as Student of the Month, put that in the media, and they can profile. They can profile that. I know the news media has Athlete of the Week. I hope they still do that. But if they would do that, wouldn't it be nice for that child who might be quiet, but he's smart, he's doing the right thing, he's going to school, he's been a good student, he's been a good community citizen, and wouldn't it be nice for him to hear about the good thing he's doing? And so I'm going to hopefully talk to Sharon Dalton Cummin and the chair of the Buffalo Board of Education to see if they can institute that, because that would be a great way to acknowledge that not all our students are wreaking havoc, not all of them are disrespectful, not all of them are shooting people or getting shot or being stabbed. Some of them are really actually doing the right thing. So I think it would be good to give them all the prompt they need, and a Student of the Month, I think it's a great, great idea. What do you think, audience?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. And I told you, one of these days I want to interview you on the Red, Black, and Green show.
Okay.
Because I'm your daughter, and I don't know everything that you've done. It's not just people out there. I mean, sometimes you'll say something, and I'll say, that's really something. I wish I would have known that sooner. But just to get back to the forum, just because I can't keep emphasizing this enough. I think it was a wonderful idea that you had.
Thank you.
And when we get at the end of this year, what we're going to do is, and the ultimate goal of this No Excuses Forum is we're going to be drafting, the organization is going to draft a community compact on youth violence, youth opportunity, violence and youth opportunity. And what we're going to do with that is first of all, it's going to be comprised of all of the best and doable recommendations and suggestions of persons that do attend the forum and do contact us. We'll give other ways to contact us, and we'll give you our point of contact information at the end of this broadcast.
But what I think we need to do too, as they make a recommendation, as they make a suggestion, let them take ownership. Let them say, you recommended this, you suggested this, will you help to spearhead it? Get them involved in not just suggesting or recommending, but actually helping to implement it.
Well, you know what? That's a wonderful idea, and I know also too, because I know what my schedule looks like. You get some folks, and to be honest with you, that might be all that some people can do.
Right.
That might be all some people are comfortable doing. to take on a project, it requires your time, blood, sweat, and tears. So,
Right.
so that's we get to take that burden off of them by we pushing forward their initiative too.
Well, we can push
for
forward,
those who can,
but we can't do it by
or don't
ourselves.
want, or don't want to.
We can't do it by ourselves. We can push it forward, but they can be part of that pushing, part of the process, part of that moral support, because they might have a connection to groups we don't have a connection to, or they might have insight to a lot of different agency, or may have even access to children who they know they need this assistance, and so they can help us doing that. So I think that we give them opportunity to say, do you want to get involved, and give them that chance to do so. If they do so, they say, no, I'm busy, I can't do it, then we'll take up the slack.
I
But I
agree.
think give them that opportunity to help us.
I agree. I agree. Thank you. So we're going to be drafting this community compact on violence and youth opportunity, and so it's going to incorporate all of the best and the doable ideas and suggestions and recommendations, and we're going to be taking that and voting on it. We're going to have a vote, ultimately a community vote. We'll do a petition around it and all of that, and we get that, and we get that drafted, and we get that to our leaders in government, our public elected officials, and we try to get them on board and get them to support it, because then you know what, Betty Jean, none of them will be able to say, I didn't know that the community was demanding that or requesting that or needing the community centers to not just exist as a building, but to be open and to be staffed and to be funded and to be accessible and to be available
to out of my mouth
to our community groups, but also most importantly to our youth.
Right. And I want to say too, to the parents out there who might feel that you are facing whatever you're facing by yourself, that nobody cares about what you're facing, and that you don't know how to reach out for assistance. I'm getting calls. I've been out of office 4 years, but I'm still getting calls.
I know.
Calls to assist people, and I can only recommend them to different organizations, different agencies. So if you're out there and you have concern or need some help with your children that maybe you don't know where to turn to or who to reach or to call for advice, you can call us. You can go to our We Are Women Warriors page. You can leave a message, or you can text me on my cell phone, 716-602-5877, or you can reach us another way, right, Sherry?
Yes, ma'am. The point of contact information for the We Are Women Warriors organization, I don't know how you enjoy giving out your personal cell phone.
I do.
I'm in awe of that. I really am.
Been doing it for 20 years.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I guess when you're an elected official, when people already have that information.
Well, I'm the first elected official to do that. Not everybody does it, but I'm the first one to. They say you're crazy now because we are making stuff accessible. People respect that. They don't abuse it. So I've never been disrespected or abused by me giving them my cell phone number. Most people are very appreciative. They don't have to wait 3 or 4 days for me to tell somebody tells somebody else. They call me, I tell them where they need to go, or I go myself, and then I call them back.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I enjoy helping people, and I enjoy having that accessibility to them, that they can, they trust me enough to let me help them.
Okay. All right.
I'm not crying, but I am.
Well, the point of contact information for the We Are Women Warriors organization is you can send any United States Postal Service, we call it snail mail, if you want to. We're going to be getting, a P.O. box would be a great idea, but we do have one we can give you right now.
I just want to check now and see if anybody got anything that I can't see because I have my glasses on.
Oh, okay. But you can send anything that you want to send in writing via snail mail, if you just want to insist on using it, is P.O. Box 725, Buffalo, New York, 14207. Our Facebook page is We Are Women Warriors. Just type in We Are Women Warriors and it'll pull it right up. Also, our telephone number, when you're not calling Betty Jane personally, is 716-8248. I'm sorry, 716-248-8783. And that's if you have just a non-emergency communication, you want to talk, you're going to get the voicemail. You leave a voicemail and your call will be returned in a prompt in orderly fashion. And other than that, if you need to, please feel free to. If you just want to, send us an email anytime. We are Winning Warriors Organization at gmail.com.
I forgot about that. How do we have that? I didn't know we had an email address. I would give them my personal email address. How do we have that?
We're trying to move away from that.
How do we have the email address?
Well, since we began pursuing that nonprofit status, we had to establish a means of getting,
Then I got to get you for the phone number and the email address. Sharon Bell Commons said, keep up the good work. Thank you, Sharon, and thank you for watching. And somebody said we need to rotate the phone. I hope that was before we did it. So are we visible right side up, or are you looking sideways? Comment so we can know that we need to rotate the phone.
And let me give an explanation for that. The way this is a technology sidebar. The way that our system is set up here, the tripod that we have, you have to have the phone horizontal. You have to have the phone like this. So if we try to do this right now, it's going to disrupt the taping of the event. What we do have is post-production, we put it right side. We right side the video. So you can see it after we finish broadcasting. Then you will be able to view the video right side up. So never fear. Okay. I'm going to go tend to something and then I'll be right back.
Okay, because those on if you're on your cell phone, you can flip the phone sideways, you can see it. But if you're not, then you'll probably have to wait until we switch it over or look at it sideways. So, this is something that I'm very happy that we had former school board president Sharon Belton Cudman as our speaker. She was the lead speaker last night. She was very dynamic. We also had the other school board members who were in the audience was Elder Paulette Woods. She was there. She represented the Central District in the Buffalo Board of Education. And we had Jennifer McCosey, who represented the West District. She came by too, and both of those spoke in our speaker section. So if you have not seen the video from last night, go to We Are Winning Warriors page or Sherry Sherrill page or Betty Jean Grant page. I didn't want to. Don't forget about me, okay? We got We Are Winning Warriors, but I still have my personal page too, so you can go to my personal page.
Yeah, so I think we've talked a lot about the forum, and so no one can say.
But you know what? We still talk about the panel. We're supposed to talk about the panel.
Mm-hmm.
We know Sharon Bell Commons, said we need more parental responsibility, more parental involvement. Those big issues was parental involvement and more community involvement. And I think Lamar Smith, he spoke next. He said no one is coming. He said we got to realize no one is coming to save us but us. He said also, too, they recognize, too, that people who are helping us, we can't consider as friends, we consider them as allies, because that way, the objectivity is more prevalent when you're allies as opposed to friends, because sometimes friends see other people's shortcomings, but because they're friends, they don't want to talk about it. So the objectivity and help has come from viewing ourselves as allies as opposed to being friends. Jesse talked about parental responsibility. Jesse Doyle was one of the speakers. He talked about raising his son. He has one son, raised his son. He was a single father, head of household. He raised his son, and he did a very great job. His son went to the Army after graduating from high school. I think he graduated from Performing Arts, maybe another school. And he has 2 children, so Jesse's a grandfather of 2. But he talked about that it is hard, but it's not so hard if you're willing to dedicate your life and your resources to help your children get the best and be the best they are. And so Jesse did a great job of raising his son as a single parent. Bishop Gelsey talked about the homicide education prevention program. I know I messed it up, but you all know what I'm talking about.
The Homicide Education Prevention Project.
Okay, I just wrote on the project.
Yes, ma'am.
That's in program, so that was good. Give me 95 for that, okay? And he's been talking about music and how our children are just sort of impressionable and they listen to music, and sometimes his music talk about murder, money, and mayhem, sex, murder, money, and that's all you see. And he talked about how we need to work together, and fortunately they got him in Buffalo Public Schools now, so he's able to be at 3 schools. I think it's MST, Burgard, and International Prep. that's where he's going to be taking his program, because sometimes we have to be responsible and accountable what our children are listening to and watching. And I just wish they have not under 21, but to TikTok, because we go on TikTok. If they want to know about life on the bad side, you can find out about it. And I just hope that there'll be some serious censorship on TikTok, because right now they're not censoring anything. Facebook, I put the video we had made I made a video. I can't remember. Oh, I was downtown at court, and I made a video, took a picture, and Facebook has not allowed me to put that picture up. It's a picture of the judge, okay, Judge McLeod and everybody else, but they kind of censored me by saying they couldn't allow me to put that picture up. Why, I don't know. But if you go on Facebook, you can see anything, everything, things you shouldn't be seeing, things you don't want to see. But we need to do something about the media, because the social media is really a detriment to those of us who don't have that parental oversight that wants to know what we're doing, what our children are doing when they're doing it. So I think that that's something we need to address. How can we get the social media to show things as appropriate, age appropriate for our children?
I want to touch on Bishop Gelsey's comments, his comments and his program,
Right.
if I could. The Homicide Education and Prevention Project is it's really a timely initiative for the time that we're living in, even though he has had it for years.
Right.
We know that he's very involved in the prisons, in prison ministry. He actually goes in and continue to go in even when the forces that be were trying to discourage pastors and ministers from, and other religious clergy from going into the prison, continuing to come in, and he continued to do that. So he's very persistent.
Well, he was bounced out of there. He had to fight to get back in, and Legislative Baskin helped him to get back in.
And he's been very persistent in that. But the emphasis, what makes his project so timely, is its emphasis on culture.
Yes.
And because you don't hear a lot of people, they're just beginning to right now, I think, because the death rate is out of control, the homicide rate is out of control, the gun violence rate is out of control, and so they're now beginning to say culture a little bit. You're hearing that a little bit,
right.
But sometimes people, they tiptoe around issues, and they're people are afraid of being canceled, so they watch what they say.
I've heard culture being used like the criminal culture, the crime culture. I also heard it used by African American culture. So which culture are we talking about?
Well, his emphasis is on culture as a construct, as culture in terms of the values that our youth are subscribing to, and that people in general are, and particularly our youth are subscribing to. The values that they are shaped in, of what's important, what's valuable to them, what's valued,
right.
what they think makes them worthy. It includes behavior. What behavior they think makes them part of the in crowd, or makes them somebody worthy of attention and focus and notice. Right. So it's all of that. And it's family structure and what happens within that family structure and in that household. And Betty Jean, 30 years ago, when I was I think you were in that organization too, but I know I was definitely in the organization, and I was talking about culture, and I had gotten
Community Voice?
Yeah, when I was in Community Voice, which Elder Fisher,
right.
Elder Charlie Fisher was leader of that, founder of that, I believe.
Yes.
And I had heard like C. Dolores Tucker. If you don't know who C. Dolores Tucker, Dolores Tucker is, she was a woman who, and I believe she was a wife and mother and maybe grandmother at that time, but she was also an activist. Mm-hmm. And she had brought up the issue of, and people like her and before her, the issue of culture. So it's been growing, this emphasis, this voice, calling out like a John the Baptist in the wilderness. Culture, look at the culture. You're not happy with what you're seeing in our youth and behavior. Look at the culture. Look at what they're being formed by. Look at what their behavior stems from and is informed by. While we can't go into person's households, we don't want to be bombarding person's households, government inside the house, whatever. But there is a link between what culture someone is cultivated in, what they're formed in, what they're shaped in, what they're developed in, what they grow up in, but also and you're talking about the media,
Right.
social media, and there is a need. You don't want to censor. I mean, First Amendment is very important.
I understand.
Anytime you talk about controlling or limiting or restricting, then people they throw that at you. You're against the First Amendment.
But they need to monitor it. They need to monitor it. They need to say this is inappropriate.
They need to maybe gauge and require that you be of certain age in order to access it.
Yeah.
But then how do they make sure people tell the truth? Anybody can get online and say, yes, I'm 18.
Right.
You know, you try to go look up Bacardi or look up Seagrams, and they're going to ask you at the top of that website, say that you are how old, and they will tell you whether or not you can get into that website. If TikTok and Facebook and all the other, there are so many of these different things now, that's what they're going to do. They're going to say, yes, I'm 18.
But look at the
But
N
they won't
word.
be on there,
Look
though.
at the N word. You know, try to use the N word on social media and see if you don't get banned or you don't get shut out. So there.
Oh, wait a minute now.
Isn't that
Wait a
sensitive?
minute now. You can go on. You would think that, right?
Yeah.
But you go on. Oh, and you know what? This is so. Instagram. You're talking about TikTok is bad?
Right.
You been on Instagram?
No.
Instagram is out of control. Instagram videos have contributed to I'll say it this way. What has the behavior that's been exhibited via the Instagram platform has contributed to homicides.
Wow.
What people are doing. You know, you hear about Instagram, somebody murdered on Instagram. That's happened more than once. Someone streaming and then someone comes and assaults them, which is horrific. But also, people are using music. What music you listen to, and people might say, does it really hurt? Well, think about this. The more you see and hear images and content about murder, death, natural disasters. I use something, innocuous and seemingly not harmless. The more you see and hear something, you grow desensitized to it. And it's not that you don't care.
Right.
Your senses just become accustomed to it. You're not as easily shocked. The more and more you hear, the harder it is to shock you. So if you're listening as a child and they're impressionable already, and you're listening to somebody and your favorite music to listen to is somebody and a group of people who talk about, or individuals who talk about killing someone if they make me mad or disrespect me or have something I want or try to rob me or victimize me, retaliating against someone who's injured someone close to me or threatened or harmed me, being ready to pull the trigger at the drop of a hat or a dime if someone offends me, looks at me the wrong way, steps on my shoe, scratches my car, or says something about me or someone that I care for. If you listen to that all the time, and you see people pulling the trigger all the time, and you see people dead all the time, then it's easier. It might not be easy, but it's easier to mimic that behavior.
You think we have been desensitized to murder?
I know for a fact that when the more we hear the media report crime and things like that, and they're supposed to do that. That's their job.
Right.
They're supposed, not that they're not supposed to do that, but the more we hear that, we grow desensitized. It's harder to shock us, and that's really dangerous when you're talking about death and homicides and assaults and suicides that are happening amongst your youth population. Because normally what happens when you start talking about crime impacting young people and children and babies, the community is outraged. And they demand something be done to correct what happened. Because you can't bring somebody back from the dead, but they demand redress. They demand that law enforcement, criminal justice, social services, mental health, whatever you want to call it, they demand a response.
Maybe to help with this, you young, maybe understand it more. When we first started the prayer vigil, not first, but when I started attending them, it was very solemn. We would pay homage to the person who was killed. Who was killed, and they would, release the balloon to go home. Lately, it has progressed to a celebration. We do the prayer vigil, and then we release the balloon, and then there's a grill in the backyard, there is music in the backyard, there's drinking in the backyard, and everything else. So I'm saying, is it I'm just too old to think that this is inappropriate. That somebody just lost their family member and they are grieving, but yet it still has turned into a party atmosphere.
Well, there's three ways of looking at it. All of them involve culture. All of them involve values and what people are comfortable with or have grown accustomed to, right? On the one hand, funerals are a very gravely solemn event. Losing someone you lost, attending a funeral,
Prayer vigil.
Right. And prayer vigil, and in supporting people, families who've lost someone, and friends who've lost someone at a funeral or prayer vigil. It's a very solemn thing. It's a very sad thing. You can, but that's one hand. On the other hand, look at cultures like what happens at New Orleans funerals or Louisiana funerals.
Yeah,
remember that whole thing?
Yeah.
How they'll have a funeral.
Solemn, very solemn.
And in the beginning.
Low music, sad music.
And then.
But coming back from the funeral, they're jamming. They're like going to a party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely right.
So there's that. So that's another way of looking at that.
Never thought of that part of it.
And then there's the other aspect, which is there's a segment of our community that has experienced so much loss and so much devastation, and they are undoubtedly in grief and trauma. And the coping strategy, the coping mechanism that they have, that has evolved out of that grief and trauma to help them cope, to help them get back to the point of being able to get up and keep going the next day, need to begin right then and there. And that may be something, they're not looking to do any harm, they don't mean any disrespect to the person who's passed away, they're not hoping to offend or might not even care if anybody's offended by what they're doing, but maybe they're for some of them, maybe they've recognized that this helps you get back up. It helps you get back up. It helps you encourage yourself. And it helps children. It might help young children to get back to some semblance of quote unquote normalcy, to see the family doing something like maybe that's accustomed to them, maybe that's something common to them, barbecuing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right about the culture, because I had a problem even accepting the New Orleans tradition of.
I did too.
I said, wait a minute, you just buried somebody. Why are you happy? Why are you showing? I thought that maybe she showed grief and sorrow, but I never look at that point of view. That it might be something that similar to what they do in New Orleans.
Well, I tend to try to do that. You brought that out in me. Speaking of the devil, but you're not the devil. But to be able
not
to
tonight.
to be able to look at a situation, whether it be a problem or a promise, to be able to look at it 360, to try to see, especially when it involves other persons, impacting them or imposed upon a situation or me or other people by them. So I try to see 360, but you know what too is interesting? That you mentioned those balloons, and have you heard of the community that is really truly opposed to the balloon being loosed, the balloon releases?
Somebody's opposed to that?
There's a large segment of the population that is opposed to that.
Pollute the environment?
Yes, ma'am. It kills birds.
It does?
It kills birds. It chokes marine life. Because eventually those balloons come down, and then the wind blows, and they tend to wind up in our lakes and rivers and streams, and it kills animals. So they're very much opposed to that. They recommend people do other things like hold sparklers. You'll see some people holding sparklers and things like that. So but that's our community is not really aware of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You still see the balloons.
Well, I don't have a problem with balloons, but I do have a problem with the teddy bear display. I think what person died. I like to see. I'm not sure they have passed law or not, but I think 30 days for a site to be with balloons and teddy bears, I think it's appropriate, but I would like to see trees planted. Something that can be a living memorial to that person who died at a particular site. So instead of putting whiskey bottles and teddy bears and balloons on that street pole, why not just put a tree in the yard next to it? And so you can have something that's growing, that still has life, and you can look at your son or daughter past as spirit helping to enrich that tree. But of course that's just my opinion, and I don't know whether the common council voted on it or not. They had considered a 30-day limitation on the amount of time that those memorial can be attached to trees and poles, but that's something that I'm not in government, so somebody else's decision, but I just think that's a little bit more, I think a tree, a living memorial, or maybe put a potted plant near the area. But those teddy bears, sometimes they get raggedy, rotten, and have rodents, living inside of them. And I don't think anybody wants their loved one to be associated with rats and rodents. So I think that maybe planting a tree or planting a potted plant there might be more, not appropriate, but more pleasing to the environment and to the people who live near there.
I agree 100%, and I look at it from the vantage also of a person who is looking for a place to live, to rent an apartment, to purchase a home.
Right.
If I were to go to purchase a home or rent an apartment, and I drove down the main thoroughfare or even a side street in a certain neighborhood that I'm looking at, and then I notice on a street light pole or on a bus stop pole, someone's taped teddy bears and candles and books and flowers and has alcohol bottles around. I'm not buying a house in that neighborhood. I'm not renting an apartment if I can help it in that neighborhood. Because what it is also, I know that the people have the best of intentions who do it and maybe are not fully aware of healthier for the environment and more respectful for the environment and more conscious of other persons' preferences as they could be. But these in some instances are younger. These are kids or teenagers and young adults that are doing this that might not be fully aware of all the considerations that need to go into putting up a public display. I mean, graffiti art is one thing because you have cities that are commissioning graffiti art.
Right, and there have been instances where the owner of the store where somebody was murdered didn't want the teddy bears and the whiskey bottles there, but they came up against a backlash from those people who were friends to that person who had gotten killed. And so it put the owner of that store, the situation is that do I remove it and risk damage to my property, or do I keep it here when my customer complaining about it? So it puts really store owner in a bad situation. But of course, if you plant a tree or you put a potted plant there, I don't think anybody would object to that. And it also showing me that this plant is growing, so therefore the person who deceased, he's still remembered through something living, not something that's old and rotted. So I think that maybe we should encourage people to use potted plants or a tree to plant in memory of their loved ones who died in a particular site.
Well, two things.
I don't see that much as I used to, those teddy bear stuff. I think they're not being used much as they were in about 20 years ago.
Well, two things. You get two things. How do you plant a tree if there is just sidewalk where somebody has died? And now the city supposed to come out, tear up the sidewalk so someone can plant a tree? So there's one tree where there's sidewalk everywhere else?
Well, there's what's called a right-of-way. There's a right-of-way all across the east side of Buffalo that has no trees. They used to have trees 40 years ago. So it might not be that particular site per site. It might be 10 feet away.
Right.
Or it might be a situation where there's a house there that the owners wouldn't mind somebody planting a tree there. Maybe 10 feet from where this person was suffered his demise. I understand it, but I don't promote even marking where someone has died in a public location. If someone, for instance, is cut down at a farmer's market, what do? Do you go to the farmer's market for years and years after that and see an indicator or marker? This is where somebody died. Why do that? Where we already, and furthermore, there is a place where you go that indicates someone has died. It's called the cemetery. You go to the cemetery and then you put teddy bears and flowers and candles and mementos on the grave where they actually are.
Where they actually physically are forevermore. And you do that on a weekly basis if you want. You can do that every day. You can do it once a month. You can do it on their birthday, once a year. So that is available to them. That's available to everybody. But to take a section of the community, even a corner of the community, and take it over and say, I'm going to impose this because this is what I want, and it's indicating a crime has occurred in the community, well, that's not appropriate. But it calls attention to, in people doing it, it calls attention to the fact that there's a high crime or a crime problem in the area, which makes it look like it's a high crime area. So again, it's deterring investment. You don't want to buy a house in a neighborhood where somebody's got, I call them death totem poles, where somebody's got a public death marker. You don't want to buy a house there. You don't want to rent a house there. Do you want to, if you're a woman, you got young children, do you want to rent an apartment next door to where the store next door to you, the apartment building, or the home has a death totem pole, has teddy bears wrapped around it and bottles, liquor bottles? Do you want your children walking by that every day or standing next to that waiting to get on the bus?
That's why I say that if people feel a need that they have to have some kind of summons where that person took his last breath, then I think that summons can be shown in a living plant, a potted plant that's still living, still growing. I think I think it'd be a more appropriate tribute to that person who lost his life.
A tree is way better than the death totem poles. You never see that in the suburbs.
Or even a potted plant.
Yeah, but then you go to Amherst, you go to Cheektowaga, you go to Williamsville, West Seneca, Orchard Park, Hamburg, Lackawanna, Tonawanda. Are you going to see a death totem pole there? The town would take it down.
Yeah.
And if they had to take it down every day, the town would take it down.
But I'm wondering how long that's been there. I know that, sometimes people take a drink to their favorite person who have died.
Yeah.
To their friends who have died. I know that in certain culture they have a drink, a last drink, but I don't think they leave the bottles and stuff. I'm not sure. How do we get on this subject?
We're talking about what impacts our youth, and they're doing that. But okay. I wanted to say too, when we're talking about social media, we got to go after this. We started late because of technical issues, right. So we're going to go to 8:15.
We can, yes.
Oh, thank you.
So, how many minutes is that?
7.
Okay, good.
So we looked at the social media impact, and you are not fond of TikTok. I know that people are on Instagram posting things that are getting done, and their friends shot up and killed, and I'm not kidding. The things that they're saying in their Instagram videos, you would think someone would have enough sense not to say. They're inviting violence toward them. And also the things that they're even writing about and singing about in their songs, you would think somebody would have sense not to invite violence toward you. And for me, I will never understand. I'm a former musician. I don't even understand the need or the desire to put a gun in your video or to rap about guns or sing about guns.
Or big stacks of money.
They're doing that though, and people are rotten. The jewelry that they're wearing in there.
Didn't Jay Stash or somebody had killed because?
There have been since last 2019 a slew of individuals in the rap genres, particularly. And somebody might say, "Well, aren't they picking on our African American youth?" Number one, stop. The statistics are not lying. Families crying out in grief and suffering trauma are not exaggerated. A large number of African American youths have been impacted by violence, either as victims and or perpetrators. And it is dreadful. And we as a community have to talk about it. We have to say something. We have to do something, and more than talk, if we're going to stop the killing, stop the violence, stop the shootings, stop the stabbing, if we're going to help our youth, if we're going to assist them, we have to be willing to talk. We need to be less hypersensitive about the possibility or the prospect of somebody being quote unquote picked on, and we need to pinpoint exactly what we believe so that we can get to what actually is contributing to the issue that we're seeing.
Right, and that's why we start talking about that. People saying, well, our youth got these bears these things. They bear the burden of racism. They bear the burden of poverty. They bear the burden of a single female head of household. They bear the burden of a system, a school that won't educate them, don't like them. This is nothing new. We've always had those burdens. We had a burden when I went to school. We had a burden when you went to school. We have those burdens probably 20 years from now. But we have to rise up and work around those burdens. We were able to do it in the past, and we could do it right now. Because if we don't, we're not going to have racism. All of a sudden, people say, oh, I'm not racist anymore. You have people be racist until this world's not here anymore. There's people going to be judgmental. There's people going to be thinking that black people are less, that they're inferior, that they don't deserve anything. That's always going to be there. But we have to find ways, like we did in the past, to rise above it. You look at the 1950s or the 1940s, and people were, lives were being stolen, lynched just because somebody looked at you wrong, or you look at a white woman wrong, you were lynched. Then you come up here and think you come into a better community, you got the same thing of racism where you were relegated to working in hotels as janitors and maids. You weren't getting the jobs and stuff. So we have always had racism. We always will have racism. We always had black people getting the worst job, getting the lowest pay. We had to find a way of getting around that. We did it. We were educated. I was educated in a two-room school. And I went to college and I graduated top 10 in my class because I put the premium of getting educated on me, and what the teacher didn't tell me. I got books and I read and I learned things myself. So we have to want to do better. We have to want our people to succeed, and we have to ensure that they do, because this society is not geared for African American to be fully functional partners in this community, in this city, in this country. We have to make sure that we do all we can to make sure our children has an opportunity to be what we want them to be, and not use racism as an excuse for not doing what they wanted to do, not using poverty as an excuse, not using the fact that people don't like me because I'm dark skinned or I'm heavy set or whatever. Let's take what we got, let's use our resources community to make our community better for all of us. We can do it. We did it in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 1980s, the 1990s. We can do it, but we have to work together to find solutions and stop blaming and stop criticizing those who want to have solutions. There are people sitting back, not doing anything, but criticizing me, Sherry, and other people who are trying to help, say, well, y'all ain't did nothing yet. Yeah, we've done more than you know, and we will do more than you think we can if you would join us and help us in achieving these goals that we have for our community. Because I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up our children, I'm not giving up on this community, and I'm not giving up on this city, because I think we can make it better. We got to work together, take the crab out of the barrel attitude, and work together so we can have a better community, educated children, quality schools, and a good work environment and jobs they can come to have a decent living.
You know, anybody who criticizes me, Betty Jane, I'm going to share some statistics and close out, and you got the final word?
I got a final word.
Okay, thank you. I want to just share, I'm going to make it real brief, but this story that I told last night of the 9-year-old boy in Louisiana.
Yes.
9-year-old boy wrote a letter to President Bill Clinton when he was in the White House. And in that letter, he asked the president, literally, please help us in Louisiana, in New Orleans. They are deading people. He used the word deading for killing. I am afraid I might get killed or my family might get killed. You can do it. Please help. 10 days after that letter was written, that little boy's mother he and his siblings and other family members went to a public park near where they lived. Other families were there in the park, obviously. One of those other families had a 16-year-old girl in it. Somehow a fight broke out between two families. The little boy's family and that 16-year-old girl's was punched in the eye by a member of the 9-year-old boy's family, an adult male member. That 16-year-old girl ran home with her brother, who was at the park with her. A 25-year-old brother of the 16-year-old girl was there in the home when she got there, saw her face and said, what happened? She told him a friend of that 25-year-old man that was in the home, who happened to be not just a friend, but he was the son of the 25-year-old man's mother's boyfriend. So a woman who had a home, had her children there. She had a boyfriend who had a son who was a friend of the woman's 25-year-old son. That boyfriend's son told the woman's 25-year-old son, get the gun. The 25-year-old son grabbed a rifle. They got in the car, they drove to the park, and the brother of the 16-year-old girl, because the 16-year-old girl remained back at the home, the brother pointed out the man who had punched his sister in the eye And the 25-year-old brother of that 16-year-old girl pointed the rifle out of the car window, aimed at the individual who did the assault, and pulled the trigger. Who he hit instead, because he missed the person he was aiming for, was the 9-year-old little boy that had written to President Bill Clinton asking him to stop the carnage, the murders that were happening in the black community down there in Louisiana. In the city of Buffalo, we have had more than one incident of persons being hit, and not only hit, but killed by gunfire. The violence is out of control. So that is what We Are Women Warriors is responding to. We're asking that you please attend the forums that are going to be happening the last Thursday in every month from 5 to 8 p.m. at this point at the Meriwether Library on Jefferson Avenue in the city of Buffalo. We need you, we need your voice, we definitely need your and hope to gain your support because our children deserve to be assisted. Between 1980 and 2013, in the United States of America, 266,000 persons were murdered. That's 266,000 people that don't have the opportunity that you and I and Betty Jean have to be part of the solution to that kind of out of control phenomenon. We have to do something. We want to do something. And on that note, I'm Sherry Sherrill.
Yeah, I want to do the little boy. I was going to church one Sunday about 20 years ago, and I saw this youth walking down the street early in the morning. It was around about 7:30, 7:45. And he looked so down, so dejected. And I kept thinking about him as I was in church, about where he was going, what his future was like. Why he's up 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning, looking so down and dejected. And so I wrote a poem in my book, Falling Through the Crack, called Little Boy. And I don't want to read it. I think it's appropriate for what we've been talking about tonight.
This is called Hooded Boy, Hoodedboy, Hooded Boy, and it is one of the 99 poems in the anthology Falling Through the Crack, written by Betty Jean Grant, and it is available on Amazon. Hooded Boy. A hooded boy stalked the street, hunting, searching, desperately looking for something. His face a mask of hurt, anger, sorrow, despair. Hands full of dope, beer, knife, gun. Pockets full of empty air, but he did not care. He was going nowhere.
Yeah, that really, really touched my soul. He was walking aimlessly down the street. He was going nowhere in the physical sense of going to a place. He was going nowhere with his hands full of gun, knife, dope. He was going nowhere both ways.
Set adrift on the weakness of you. Baby, you send me out. Baby, you send me out. Set adrift on the weakness of you.